When you think of Detroit, what comes to mind? It's hard not to picture the Lions and the Lions losing so much, and no matter how bad they've been, a fan base that's endured two 30-year stretches of not making the playoffs and a supposed curse put on by a former player, it's a never-ending cycle for the Lions and their fan base. However, a long-awaited championship could be coming up sooner rather than later to a city that's been waiting, dreaming that maybe, just maybe, this would be their year. I don't think everyone truly understands how good this Lions team actually is compared to their former ones from years past. Very often, we see a new team every year sort of pop up out of nowhere to leave us thinking, were they lucky? Or were they always this good and have we just not been paying attention enough? Recently, we've seen the 49ers go from 4-12 to the Super Bowl in one season. The Bengals just 2 seasons ago, worst team to the Super Bowl. The Eagles ended 1 year strong and this past season built a juggernaut that brought them moments from winning it all. The one thing particularly interesting about teams in the Super Bowl is that every year the NFC seems to be the one with a different alpha, while the AFC on the other hand seems to have the same 2 or 3 teams being picked. This year, if there was one team that I had to pick and say that this is the team that will surprise you, but it shouldn't really be a surprise, it's the Lions. And I'll tell you why. Just this past season, everything that made Detroit a miserable place to play football seemed to be on display once again. Starting this season with a terrible 1-6 record, the defense looked like farmers chasing chickens. Their DBs were being toasted, buttered up, and put on a plate served hot. The front seven got ran through like a freshman at UCLA. It was bad. Sometimes games get away from them and the offense was off, and when the offense couldn't keep up, forget it. They had no chance. They were a team that was always an inch short every game, and by the fourth quarter, that inch turned into the whole 9 yards. Until November 6th, week 9, versus division rival Green Bay. The Lions would end up putting on a defensive clinic, picking off Aaron Rodgers 3 times, something that hasn't happened since 2017 against the Carolina Panthers. The Lions held Green Bay to just 9 points and stopped them at midfield and in the red zone multiple times. In fact, every interception came on Detroit's side of the 50-yard line. There were 2 players responsible for those turnovers, the rookie tandem of Aiden Hutchinson and Kirby Joseph. Hutchinson and Joseph were a huge part of the Lions' success in the second half of the season, and it all started with this game. After week 9, the Lions would continue to roll. They'd sneak away with a 1-point victory against the Bears in Chicago, where former struggling corner Jeff Okudah had a game-shifting pick 6. They would go to New York, roll against the Giants, and barely lose to the Bills on Thanksgiving. Detroit would go on to win 5 of their last 6 games, and were a Rams victory away from making the playoffs as they took care of Green Bay once again in the season finale. From week 9 and beyond, the Lions offense would put up 28 points per game while only allowing 20.2 points per game. That game against Green Bay sparked a fire under the team. Rookie James Houston would come out of nowhere to make a lethal pair of edge rushers for the opposing offense. Him and Hutchinson would rack up double-digit sacks combined on the season. Their pass defense got better, and they were able to maintain leads. When it comes to the NFL, these types of incidents where teams seemingly flip the script is usually always a sign for big things to come the following year. As I mentioned before, in 2021, Philly finished the season winning 6 of their last 8 games and being one of the best offenses while doing so. And look at how they carried that momentum into this past season. They went all the way to the Super Bowl. And sometimes this is also flipped, but it's a rare thing to happen where a team like the 2015 Falcons, for instance, who started off 5-0 but then fell off a cliff, finishing the season 8-8, but they would go on to finish 2016 on fire and punch themselves a ticket to the Super Bowl, which we all know how that ended, and promise I won't make any jokes. We can look at the additions that they've brought in and examples of what makes their offense and defense so talented and versatile. Starting with the offense, which was already a well-balanced unit, had some pretty nice additions. Detroit added running back David Montgomery after the surprising departure of Jamal Williams, wide receiver Marvin Jones after losing DJ Chark, offensive guard Graham Glasgow from Denver to add to an already stacked offensive line. Overall, you can come to the conclusion that the Lions offense will be just as good as they were last year, as they lost some players but added some as well, so no harm, no foul. The defense, on the other hand, is where things get interesting. Detroit brought back many starters to continue playing with their talented 2022 rookie class, and they've also added a tremendous amount of talent in free agency. The Lions added these guys to their defense. Cornerback Cameron Sutton from Pittsburgh, who had a career-high 3 picks last season, along with 14 pass breakups. Cornerback Emmanuel Mosley from San Francisco, who's been there since the 49ers Super Bowl run in 2019, and it was a huge part of their defense. Safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who was one of the biggest free agent signings of this season. He led the NFL in interceptions last season after missing multiple games and was a big part of the Eagles' Super Bowl run. Not only did they add players, but they brought back some, as I mentioned, players like Alex Anzalone, Isaiah Buggs, John Kaminsky, Will Harris, and others to keep depth. Detroit's given a secondary with talent, just more talent, and more importantly, players who come from winning organizations and well-coached organizations. Emmanuel Mosley and Cameron Sutton are two starting quality corners, and Detroit got them for cheap while already having a revitalized Jeff Okudah. I almost forgot about linebacker Malcolm Rodriguez, who is a part of that really good rookie class last year. He's there too and ready to take the next step. Speaking of rookies, Detroit still has the upcoming draft, and they have 2 picks inside the top 20. It's anybody's guess who Detroit will go with. Some say quarterback, some say defensive tackle, which would make a lot of sense. If I was Detroit, here's exactly what I would do. With the 6th overall pick, assuming he's on the board, I'd take Devin Witherspoon. Physically, Witherspoon is the best corner in the draft. He's the most pro-ready in my opinion. I know I just mentioned how much the Lions have already invested into the cornerback position, but this is for the future and in case an injury happens. You want to keep your strength a strength. Okudah's 5th-year option isn't guaranteed, as one decent year probably won't cut it. Emmanuel Mosley also only signed a 1-year deal. So at least with this pick, Detroit knows who their top corner could most likely be 4 years down the road. With the 18th pick, that's where it gets a bit more tricky. I wouldn't rule out a trade once again if I was Detroit, but if I was the GM, I would draft Dalton Kincaid, once again, assuming he's on the board. Kincaid overall is the best tight end in the draft, and with the trade of TJ Hawkinson, the Lions needed to fill that void. It's a really deep tight end class, and they could probably get someone late in the 2nd round or 3rd round maybe. But why not get the best guy when you can? Give Goff more weapons, and I think he's a fit in the offense, and you're pairing him with a talented receiver duo with St. Brown and Jameson Williams. I'm taking that pick all day. If the Lions are able to pull off those picks in the 1st round, I think they nailed it. I want to take a look at one play from the offense and one play from the defense from last season that I think really shows how well the Lions know their personnel and how much their talent has improved. This play on offense is my favorite example. Rookie receiver Jameson Williams made his 2022 debut during Week 14, and his first catch and only catch was a touchdown. A guy who's known for long, explosive touchdowns has his first NFL catch be a 41-yard touchdown even after an ACL tear, even after not playing the whole season. That's when talent meets the right opportunity. That's the coach saying, I know what you can do and I'm going to let you do it. Not to be mistaken, luck also has a lot to do with it, but that's the truth for a lot of good teams. They get the lucky bounces. These kinds of plays are a sign of good things to come. This next play came in Week 18 where Green Bay was facing a winner-go-home scenario, and Green Bay took charge early in this game, and it looked as if they were going to be able to run away with this one, but a quick surge from Detroit took away all that hope. Rodgers is going to look down the sideline for Watson in a desperate attempt to hit a big play, as Detroit has stopped almost any attempt to do so before. In a big moment, a rookie comes in clutch. That's something that wasn't foreign to Detroit during the 2nd half of the year. This pretty much closed out the game, and I know I only said 2 plays, but this next one is just a compliment to the last play. They go for it on 4th down, they pass it, and they get it. They don't play it safe or settle. They drop back and they go for it all. The big thing is they got it. It doesn't always have to go that way, but once again, when you're a good team, good things usually happen. And by that time in the year, Detroit was a really good team. By no means is Detroit perfect, and as much as I believe in them, they still have to prove that they're worthy of making the playoffs before I can crown them for anything else ahead of that. They still have to go through the 49ers, they still have to see Philly, and they have to prove that they can hang with their division again. It's a tall task no matter how talented you are, but as the saying by Rex Ryan goes, the best place to be is when expectations are high. Make no mistake about it, the city of Detroit is tired of losing, but as a fan, all you can do is watch. As a player and a coach, all you can do is play. I believe Detroit will play good, if not great football, because of everything that they fixed and added leading up to this point. Whether it's a bit more will to keep fighting or another talented player. Dan Campbell is a great coach and an even better person. We see how much he cares about men who are just trying to set a good example for a city who hasn't had one in a long time. Whatever Detroit does in the upcoming draft, I think at the very least, they'll get most picks right. When it comes to next season, they have a lot to look forward to. A new year just means new opportunity. That's the case every year, but everyone can sense that there's a different vibe this time. Amon-Ra St. Brown will kill you with a run after catch. Jameson Williams will burn you over top. Montgomery is a runaway truck coming at you full speed. The pair of second-year pass rushers have made offensive linemen toss and turn in their sleep, and it's starting to look like LSU with all these talented DBs coming in. Cloudy gray days in Detroit never surprise us. It's not the most luxurious place to be, but pretty soon, what was once thought to be an easy matchup for opponents will prove to be a mismatch.